Namaste everybody, welcome to the beach. Today we're going to do another prenatal flow in which we're going to show you some modifications for various poses and various flows such as the vinyasa flows of sun salutation A and B. There's a lot of chaturangas in those, which includes planks, and that can really affect you if you're further along or if you're already having coning and splitting of the abs. You can have that as early as week 15 or even earlier. I think I started to see mine at about week 16. So you can really see that throughout, and so I had to start modifying how I did my chaturangas and my sun salutations as we went. I'll also show you some other flows and other poses that we're going to be able to modify depending on where you are at. And most important is just making sure you feel comfortable in each pose, and if you don't feel comfortable, to not do them. There are certain poses that I'm able to do because I've practiced yoga that you may not be able to do because you haven't, or your pregnancy is just different than mine. So it's showing you some modifications, but it's also making sure that you do what you're comfortable with at this part of your pregnancy. Part of these poses and part of these modifications will include blocks, as you can see, and a bolster. The pillows are just for decoration apparently, so just ignore those. But a bolster and blocks can really help you be able to get into some of these poses without overexerting that intra-abdominal pressure. Something we're definitely trying to keep away from. Yoga has a lot of breathing, and that's why even before there was pregnancy, you would always hear my flows discussing breath. Breath work is incredibly important. Now that we have added pressure into the inside of our stomach from having a little tiny thing in there, you really want to modify how you and make sure you're breathing appropriately and not abdominally bracing and holding that pressure in. Equal breath through your nose or through your mouth, whatever's more comfortable for you. So we're going to get onto the mat and we're going to start a few poses, and we'll see you there. We're going to start in a seated position with our legs crossed. See you on the mat. Wonderful. So we're going to come to a seated positions, legs crossed, or even legs a little bit more out in front of us. Whatever's really more comfortable for you. If you feel like a seated position is uncomfortable because of your hips or your SI joints, you can always grab this bolster and put it under your butt to lift yourself up a little bit more, and it adds just a little less pressure to your hips and supports your low back just a little bit more. So we're gonna start, I'm just gonna keep seated on the bolster because I have it here so you can see kind of the modification. So we're just gonna start with our normal framing of our breath work. Specifically, like I said, we wanna keep that breath as we go. So we're gonna set it up now, and you want to keep the pace of how your breath stays in this level the whole time. So some people may be able to move a little bit quicker and a little more advanced. If they're used to exercise. If you're not, you want to make sure that you are not holding that breath in, because that's not very good for you. So come to a seated position, hands are just comfortable at our sides, and we're just gonna sit here and take a few breaths. Again, we're just wanna expand the stomach. We're really focusing on the chest a little bit more, no shoulder involvement, but we're just inhaling. And then gentle exhale, this time more focusing on the diaphragm rather than the abdominal pressure. So big breath in and out. Big breath in. So we just want to keep an even paced breath throughout all of this, where we're able to breathe in and out in a regular fashion. No bracing. No squeezing, just breathing. Good. From here, if you're still on the bolster, great. If not, you're on the floor, totally fine. We're just going to very gently lean forward. Now, depending on how big your baby bump is at this point in time, you may just put your hands on the mat. If that is still too much because your bump is too big or it's uncomfortable and you're on that bolster or not on that bolster, just grab a block. And all you're gonna do is just bend as far forward as what's comfortable for you. So I have a little bit more clearance just because I'm used to it, but I'm just gonna forward fold and come down towards the block. If you feel like this is too much because you're further into your trimester, your third trimester, then just use the block and ease into it. We're just gonna breathe through it. We're really trying to open up the hips and keep our breath. Good, and we're gonna walk it over to the left. Again, if you have a bolster, now we used to go all the way as far back as we could. We don't want to do a lot of torsion with our baby bump, so we're really just kind of easing into as much of a twist as we can get. Take a big breath in and out. Good. And then we're gonna walk it off to the right. And again, if you need a block, then you're just bringing the block over with you. And you're just leaning as far forward just to get a stretch, but not put too much pressure on those abs or make yourself feel uncomfortable. The bolster helps to keep those butt cheeks, those glutes from rising up, and that can be difficult if you're tight or into a further trimester. Take a big breath in and out. Big breath in and out. Good. We'll come back to center, and we're going to go ahead and we're just going to turn and stand towards the top of our mat and do a forward fold. Now, again, if you're not used to yoga or you're just having a lot of discomfort in that belly, then we're just going to bring a block to meet us for our forward fold. If that's still too aggressive, then you just put your hands on your thigh and that's your forward fold. If you're able to get all the way down to the ground still and it's comfortable enough for your belly, then that is totally fine. And we're just going to take a few breaths here to open up those hamstrings. Big breath in and out. Good. And then we're going to inhale, rise all the way up, arms come up by our ears. Now normally we take a back bend, but if you're having too much of splitting of the abdomen, like I'm not really able to do a back bend anymore because mine will split. So whatever's more comfortable for you, we can do very gentle side to side. Just pay attention to that tummy coning. Big breath in and out. And out. Good. Now, if we're doing a traditional sun salutation A, we forward fold, and again, you can use your blocks. We halfway lift, and then we step back to plank. Now, if that's too aggressive, then we can step back to tabletop, and we can just do, basically stay in tabletop and do mini push-ups, or we can come all the way back and lower down onto our tummy and forward. Now, again, if you are in your third trimester, then I would stay in tabletop and just do little mini push-ups, mini chaturangas, so your belly's not hitting the floor. If you're feeling more comfortable, or like me, you're just in your second trimester and your belly's not that big, then you can do a knee chaturanga. If you're having no splitting of your abdomen, then you can do a full plank. It's totally up to you. Then you're gonna curl your toes and send your butt back for down dog. Again, it's very important when you send it back for down dog, you're taking a breath in and out and not holding pressure. Because if you cannot hold pressure, you can get up in this position without the coning. If you're trying to force yourself up with your breath, then you're gonna have conings. So if you have issues getting into down dog from here, then what I recommend is stepping back up and into a forward fold, and then stepping back into down dog so you don't have as much coning. If that still causes coning, then you just don't go to down dog. And then we'll step forward for a forward fold. Good, and then inhale, rise all the way up. So that's a modified sun salutation. We'll do it just a little bit faster without me talking as much. So exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Step back to tabletop or plank, or modified knee chaturanga, up dog. If you are in tabletop, just take a very gentle cat-cow, and then you're just gonna curl your toes and send your butt back for a down dog. Take a big breath in and out, and then we'll walk our feet up to the top of the mat for a forward fold. Beautiful. And then inhale, rise up. Beautiful, we'll go through it one more time. Exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift, exhale, and then step yourself back to whatever pose you choose. If we're gonna, so let's say our belly's too big and we're gonna stay in tabletop, I'll show you what that looks like. So our chaturanga would be a mini push-up, and then our up dog would actually be a cow. And then you can come into a little modified cat, curl your toes, and send yourself back very gently. And then walk your hands to the top of the mat. Beautiful. Inhale, exhale, and then inhale, rise up, tall mountain. Beautiful. Now we'll go through sun salutation B. This one has a ton of chaturangas, so we're gonna try to not do that. So there's two modifications for sun salutation B. First is we're gonna get into chair pose. Now normally they want your feet your feet and your ankles, toes together, our hips are starting to spread. So that's usually very difficult to do. So I recommend a wide base, and as wide as what's comfortable for you, to be able to sink down into that chair pose. It is still a very important pose to do, especially when you're expecting, but you just may need to take a wider stance and you just come back up. So first part of Sun Salutation B is the chair pose. So we're gonna come into it. If it feels like it's too difficult or you're coning with your arms up by your ears, you can bring them down by your chest. And then exhale, forward fold. Again, blocks if needed, and forward fold. Big breath in and out, halfway lift. We're gonna step back into our plank pose, our tabletop, whatever feels best. You're either gonna do your mini push-up or your chaturanga to a modified up dog and down dog. And then we're gonna send it back for our down dog. Beautiful. We're gonna take this right foot. Now normally we send it back for a three-legged dog and then step it. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna walk it up to our hands. So we have less, and I'll walk our hands back so we have less of a less amount of pressure on our abs. And then we're gonna rise up into warrior one. Now, warrior one is that back arch is turned, right foot is forward. Sometimes, and usually you want a nice big stance. If that's too much for your stomach or you feel it in your pelvic floor, you feel too much pressure, then just take a modified warrior two or modified warrior one where your legs are a little closer and you're not sinking as much into it. So you're not straining these muscles or this pelvic floor as much. Beautiful. And then we'll come down. We'll send our knees down for either our tabletop. So if we're in tabletop, we're just gonna mini push up, cat or cow, and then cat. And then however we see fit to get to down dog, we'll come to down dog. And then once again, we're just gonna take that left foot and we're just gonna walk it up to our hands very gently. Not as much of a crunching motion when you're in your one of your trimesters, and then we're just gonna sink forward. Again, that amount of sinking is what's ever comfortable for your hips and your pelvic floor. Big breath in and out. Beautiful. And then hands to the mat, drop that back knee, tabletop, and then whatever you choose to do, whether it's chaturanga, an up dog, or just a cat-cow. And then we send it for down dog. And then we're just gonna look at our hands and we're just gonna very gently walk our feet to our hands for a forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. And then we're just gonna come into chair pose again. As much of a gap in between your knees is what's comfortable for your pelvis at this point in time. And then inhale, rise up. Beautiful. So that is one modification where we just take it really slow and easy. The next modification is going to be where we don't get onto the mat at all and we just take half lifts. So first one is come to chair pose. Take a big breath in and out. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, forward fold. We halfway lift. And now normally we step back for plank. In this case, we're just gonna forward fold and then rise back up, ground through the right foot, step back with your left foot and come into warrior one. Take a big breath in and out. Beautiful. And then we just step forward, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Rise back up, ground through the left foot, step back, rise up. Big breath in and out. Big breath in and out. And then we step forward, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. And then inhale, come back into chair pose. Beautiful. So those are two modifications, just taking it very easy for our sun salutations. So the next ones we're just going to kind of modify, which are still really good poses, is our Yogi Squat. So if you are used to squatting and this isn't uncomfortable, you take your feet about hip width of the mat and you just sink down into this pose. Now, again, is this comfortable for you? Is this comfortable for your pelvis, for your belly? All of the things. If you have pain or you feel like you're coning, then take a block or 2, and you're going to sit. This, again, is a great pose, and it is also in some instances, a common labor pose. Like some people have their baby similar to this type of pose, or station, whatever you want to call it. But anyways, it's a very good pose to take. It helps with the pelvis, but you just don't want to put too much aggression on it if you're not used to it or if you're having pain. For example, my first trimester towards the end, it was really hard to do this one because of my round ligament pain right in here. And so I had to use blocks because it was just more comfortable. So you're just here and you're breathing through it. If you don't have blocks, then you're just, once again, breathing through it. And we're just stretching out that pelvic floor. But again, we don't want intra-abdominal pressure. You're just breathing through it. Good. And we'll come up and rise back up. Another pose that uses modifications is triangle pose. So triangle pose, right foot forward at this point, left foot back. We're in warrior 2, and we extend. Now normally you come all the way down, if you're able to the floor. If that puts too much pressure on your belly, just bring a nice block, bring the floor to you. You are normally, for this pose, you're trying to pull your belly button to your spine to get an aggressive twist. We're not really doing that. And in fact, if this is even too much, sometimes I just bring my arm back here to get a shoulder stretch and a chest stretch without as much of a twist. And I just hang out here for a few and breathe through it. It would really help. Really help if I didn't hit my microphone off, so apologies on that one. Perfect. Sorry, testing the microphone. So we're just going to be here for a few breaths, and then we rise back up very gently. If that still feels like it's too much, that block, I don't recommend in triangle pose stacking the blocks. So all you do is you just put your hand a little bit on your thigh and just come forward a little bit and just kind of look up towards the ceiling. Again, we're not really trying to get aggressive with that twist because it's really uncomfortable and squishes your little feller or girl in there, whichever one you're having. And then we rise back up. So on the other side would be the same idea. Left foot is forward, right foot is perpendicular, knee extended, and you come to that shin. You can bring that arm up, that thigh. You can bring that arm up, or you can rest it behind you, bring it to your shin, the floor, or if you feel like you're just not quite there, or it hurts your pelvis, or it hurts your tummy, hurts your low back, then we just come to a block. And we take a big breath in and out. Arm comes wherever you're comfortable, and we just breathe through it. Not trying to get aggressive with the twist. Normally, we really try to angle that twist up. We're not doing that this time. Good. And then we rise back up, warrior 2. And that's how we kind of modify our triangle poses. Now, another one that is widely used and is really good is, because we're strengthening those inner thigh muscles, is goddess pose. So we come down. Now this one is harder to do with blocks. So what I recommend is just not coming as low, or even finding a stool or a chair that you can sit on. And we just have that opening there. And a lot of the times it ends in forward fold, wide-legged forward fold. So I recommend getting blocks so you can forward fold and not have as much aggression on your stomach. So taking a big breath in and out. Goddess pose is hard to modify, but it's a good one to do, so I recommend doing it and just modifying how deep you go into your squat. And then forward fold, wide-legged forward fold. You just use blocks to stay comfy. Sometimes this one is actually more comfy than regular forward fold because you're opening up that room for the belly and the pelvis. Good. And then we rise back up. The last one we'll show modification for is going to be child's pose. So a lot of the time, child's pose is our knees together, and then we sink back like this. I can't do it. Once I hit about midway through my second trimester, I couldn't do it because of the belly. So you take a wide-legged, you take your knees as wide as the mat, and you sink your butt back. Now, if that is still too aggressive and it hurts because you can't get your butt that far back, put a bolster here on your butt, and you just kind of sit forward, and you can come onto your elbows, or you can come as far back as, or far forward as you would like, but adding that bolster just supports that bum a little bit more. So you're able to just kind of support yourself and you're not just free floating and the belly's not free floating. So you're just gonna take a few breaths here. Keep the bolster there if that's more comfortable. And we're just gonna take a big breath in and a big breath out. Good. And you just kind of very gently let that belly rest and the hips open up. Now again, if you need that bolster to support the low back and the glutes, please do. Good, and then we can rise back up and we come to a seated position. Now this is like a wide-legged hero pose. Again, if that one is too much and you're not ready for it, just sit onto a bolster, and that just helps to support your pelvis and your low back as well. And we're just gonna come into this final resting posture. You can always do Shavasana if you would like. I know a lot of people say you shouldn't lay on your back. There's actually research showing that it's okay to lay on your back. I just wouldn't do it if it's uncomfortable or you feel like you're dizzy or losing your breath. So I don't do Shavasana as often, largely because it's hard to get up from it after a certain point. So I just usually come into a nice hero pose with a nice bolster between my knees. And so we're just gonna sit here and get our breath back to normal. Take a big breath in and out. Big breath in and out. Good, and take this modified Shavasana as long as you would like and enjoy a little bit of a looser feeling, hopefully, for these modified poses. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us for that one. Hopefully it just helped you get through your own flow and really just helped to modify so you're able to stay active. It's all really based on how you feel, and it's one of those things that you really aren't pushing through right now. You are modifying to get through pain-free, comfortably, and reducing the abdominal pressure. So that's very important throughout all of the yoga flows and whatever trimester you're in. I would recommend to make sure that you speak to your doctor about activity, disclaimer, so that way you make sure you're doing things safe and sound for you and your little critter growing in you. So thanks for joining. If you have any questions or concerns, just let us know. We will get into breath work and intra-abdominal pressure a little bit more as we go along, because that tends to be something that is just passed over and very important. So hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks for joining us on the mat today, and we hope to see you next time. And remember, Namaste, beaches.